I never thought silence could be a weapon. But on Thanksgiving Day, when my son and his wife stood over my hospital bed discussing how to steal everything I'd built, they made one critical mistake. They assumed that just because I couldn't speak clearly, I couldn't hear. They assumed that just because I was 72 and recovering from a stroke, I was helpless. They were wrong. My name is Eleanor Richardson, and this is the story of how I lost my voice but found my strength. The stroke happened on a Tuesday morning in October. I was in my garden in Victoria, British Columbia, deadheading the last of the autumn roses when the world tilted sideways. The secateurs fell from my hand. I tried to call out, but the words came out garbled, meaningless. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, found me 20 minutes later, slumped against the garden wall. At Royal Jubilee Hospital, the doctors explained that I'd had an ischemic stroke. Not massive, they said, as if that made it better. The left side of my face drooped slightly. My speech was slurred and slow, like my tongue had forgotten how to form consonants. But my mind? My mind was perfectly clear. That was the cruelest part. "You're very lucky, Mrs. Richardson," Dr. Patel told me. "With therapy, you should regain most of your function. It'll take time. Time. That word kept coming up. Time to heal. Time to recover. Time I apparently didn't have, though I didn't know it yet. My son Brian arrived from Vancouver the next day. He's 46, works in commercial real estate, always wears expensive suits that never quite fit right. He rushed into my hospital room with his wife Stephanie trailing behind him, and for a moment I felt a surge of relief. My boy, my only child. "Mom!" He took my hand. We were so worried. I tried to say I was okay, but it came out as I'm okay, each syllable struggling through mud. Stephanie stood at the foot of the bed, scrolling through her phone. She's 38, blonde, with the kind of polished appearance that costs money. She barely looked up. "The doctors say you can't go home alone," Brian said. "Not right away. You'll need help, around-the-clock care." I'll manage, I managed. "No, Mom, you can't. What if you fall? What if you have another stroke and no one's there?" He wasn't wrong. The house on Magnolia Avenue was large, 3 stories, built in 1912. My husband James and I had renovated it over 30 years of marriage before he passed 5 years ago from pancreatic cancer. Every room held memories, but it also had stairs. Lots of stairs. "We've been looking into options," Stephanie said, finally engaging. "There's a very nice facility in Victoria, Ocean View Care Center. They have a bed available." "Facility?" The word took forever to form. "Just temporarily," Brian assured me, "until you're stronger. Then we can reassess." Something in his tone made me uneasy, but I was tired, so tired. The medication made everything fuzzy around the edges. I nodded. That was my first mistake. They moved me to Ocean View Care Center the following Monday. Brian and Stephanie helped me pack a small bag. "Just the essentials," Stephanie said. "You won't need much." I watched them move through my bedroom, Stephanie opening drawers with a familiarity that felt invasive. She'd never been close to me. In the 15 years she'd been married to Brian, she'd visited maybe a dozen times, always with an excuse to leave early. The care center was nice enough, clean, bright, the staff were kind, but it wasn't home. My room was small, institutional, with art that was meant to be soothing, but just felt empty. Through the window, I could see the ocean, gray and restless under October clouds. "We'll visit soon," Brian said as they prepared to leave. He kissed my forehead. Stephanie was already at the door, keys in hand. "Love you, Mom. Love. You." I watched them walk down the corridor, Stephanie's heels clicking sharply on the linoleum. Just before they turned the corner, I heard her voice, clear and cutting. "Thank God that's done. Now we can deal with the house." I sat very still. The words hung in the air like smoke. The first few days passed slowly. Physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy. I worked hard, determined to get home. The speech therapist, a patient young woman named Sarah, praised my progress. "You're doing wonderfully, Eleanor. Your articulation is improving every day." But it was still slow, still effortful. Every conversation felt like climbing a mountain. Brian called twice in the first week. Short calls. Just checking in, Mom. Glad you're doing well. We're swamped with work right now, but we'll try to visit soon. They didn't visit. Thanksgiving approached. In Canada, Thanksgiving comes in October, not November like in the States. It's a time for family, for gathering, for gratitude. I'd hosted Thanksgiving dinner for 40 years. James would carve the turkey. I'd make my mother's butter tart recipe. The house would smell of sage and cinnamon. This year, I'd spend it in a care center, eating institutional turkey with other residents who had nowhere else to go. On Thanksgiving morning, I was in the common room when the receptionist approached me. "Mrs. Richardson? Your son is here to see you. He's in your room with his wife." My heart lifted. They'd come, Brian had remembered. I made my way back to my room slowly, using the walker. The door was slightly ajar. I was about to push it open when I heard Stephanie's voice. The appraisal came back at $1.4 million. I froze. "That much?" Brian's voice. Surprised. Pleased. It's Victoria. Waterfront properties are gold. That house is sitting on prime real estate, and it's just sitting there empty while she's here. She's not going to want to sell it, Steph. That house is everything to her. She doesn't have a choice, Brian. Look at her. She can barely talk. She's not going back there. Be realistic. My hand tightened on the walker. "But the house is hers," Brian said, though his voice was weak. "For now. But you're her only child, her only heir, and she's 72 with a major health issue. We need to think long-term. We need to think about our future." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we need to get power of attorney. She can't manage her own affairs anymore. It's obvious. Get her to sign it over to you while she's still compliant. Then we can make the decisions that need to be made." "I don't know, Steph. That feels wrong." "What's wrong is letting her hang onto a house she'll never live in again while it drains her savings on property taxes and maintenance. What's wrong is us struggling with the business while there's $1.4 million just sitting there. She'd want you to be taken care of, Brian. You're her son." There was a long pause. "What about the stuff inside? Dad's things, Mom's jewelry? We'll deal with it. Sort through it, keep what matters, sell the rest. There's probably a lot of value there. Your father was a bank manager. They had nice things. She'll never agree to this." Stephanie laughed. It was cold, calculating. "She can barely string a sentence together, Brian. She can't fight this. And honestly, by the time she's capable of fighting, it'll be done. We file for power of attorney citing medical incapacity. We sell the house. We tell her it was necessary, that we had no choice. What's she going to do?" My legs were shaking. I gripped the walker so hard my knuckles went white. "I still think we should wait," Brian said, but his resistance was crumbling. I could hear it. "We can't wait. The market's hot right now. And we need this, Brian. The business is drowning. We're 3 months behind on the commercial property mortgage. If we don't do something soon, we'll lose everything. This is survival. When do we do it?" "I've already contacted a lawyer. We can file the paperwork next week. I'll tell her you've been managing some bills for her, make it seem normal. She signs. We're done." "What if she refuses?" "She won't. She can't even say power of attorney clearly. We'll present it as helping her, taking the burden off her shoulders. She'll sign." I couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in. This was my son, my child, the boy I'd raised, sacrificed for, loved unconditionally. And he was planning to steal my life. I backed away from the door as quietly as I could, my heart hammering. I made my way to the common room and sank into a chair by the window. When they came looking for me 15 minutes later, I was staring at the ocean, my face carefully composed. "Mom!" Brian's smile was bright. "False. Happy Thanksgiving. Sorry we can't stay long. Work's crazy." "Hap P. Thanksgiving," I managed. Stephanie stood behind him, her expression unreadable. "You look well, Eleanor. The care here really suits you." They stayed 20 minutes, made small talk. Brian held my hand and asked about therapy. Stephanie checked her watch 3 times. As they were leaving, Brian leaned down. "Mom, I've been helping with some of your bills, the house stuff. I know it's a lot to manage. Would it be okay if I handled more of that for you? Just to make things easier?" My mouth went dry. This was it, the setup. "We can talk about it more later," he continued, when I didn't respond right away. "No rush. Just want to help." I nodded slowly. "Thank you." After they left, I sat in my room and stared at the ceiling. My mind was racing, perfectly clear despite my stumbling tongue. They thought I was broken, diminished, an obstacle to be managed. They had no idea who they were dealing with. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the dark and thought about everything I'd lost: James, my health, my independence. And now my son was trying to take the one thing I had left: my home, my security, my legacy. No, I wouldn't let it happen. But I needed help. And I needed someone they didn't know about. The next morning, I asked the nurse for my phone and my address book. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. There, Jason Caldwell. Jason was my nephew, my sister's son. He was 29, a lawyer in Vancouver. I'd helped pay for his law school after his father died. We'd always been close, but he'd been traveling for work, and I hadn't seen him in 6 months. I dialed his number. It rang 4 times. "Hello? Ja, son. It's Aunt Eleanor." "Aunt Eleanor? Oh my God, I heard about your stroke. I'm so sorry I haven't called. I've been in Toronto for a case. Are you okay? You sound—" "I need help." Each word was an effort, but I forced them out. Something bad. "Need you to come, please." "Of course. What's wrong? Is it Brian?" Smart boy. He'd always been perceptive. "Yes. Please. Come. Don't. Tell him. I can be there tomorrow. Tell me where you are." I gave him the address of Ocean View. Relief flooded through me. "Hang on, Aunt Eleanor. I'm coming." Jason arrived the next afternoon. When he walked into my room, I almost cried. He looked so much like his father, like my sister Catherine, who'd passed 10 years ago. Dark hair, kind eyes, that same determined jawline. He pulled up a chair and took my hand. "Tell me everything. Take your time." So I did. Slowly, painfully, I recounted what I'd overheard. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each sentence. "They can't do this," he said when I finished. "You're not incapacitated. You had a stroke, yes, but you're cognizant. You understand everything. Your speech is impaired, not your mind. That's not grounds for involuntary power of attorney." "What can I do?" He pulled out a laptop. "First, we document everything. We're going to record your statement clearly establishing that you understand your situation, that you're mentally competent, and that you haven't authorized Brian to act on your behalf. Then we're going to get you assessed by a neurologist who will confirm your cognitive function. That'll stop any power of attorney filing in its tracks. But they'll know. Not yet. We do this quietly, get everything in place. Then, when they make their move, we're ready." Over the next week, Jason worked methodically. He arranged for Dr. Patel and 2 other neurologists to assess me. All 3 confirmed that while I had speech and minor motor difficulties, my cognitive function was completely intact. I understood my finances, my medical situation, my rights. "You're of sound mind, Mrs. Richardson," Dr. Patel told me. No question. Jason had me record a video statement, speaking slowly but clearly about my wishes. He photographed my medical records. He contacted my bank and put alerts on my accounts. He filed a preemptive statement with the Victoria Courthouse establishing my mental competency. "If they try to file for power of attorney now," he explained, "the court will see your statement first. They'll require a hearing, and at that hearing, we'll present all this evidence. They won't have a leg to stand on." "What about the house?" "The house is yours, solely in your name. They can't touch it without your signature or a court order, and they won't get a court order." But I wanted more than just to stop them. They needed to understand what they'd tried to do. They needed consequences. "Jason, what if we let them try?" He looked at me carefully. "What do you mean, let them? File. Let them. Think it's working. Then stop them. Publicly. A slow smile spread across his face. You want to catch them in the act. I nodded. That's risky, Aunt Eleanor. But it would create a clear case of attempted elder financial abuse. That's a criminal offense in British Columbia. Are you sure? I'm sure. He leaned back. Okay, then we need to be smart about this. We'll let them proceed, but we'll document everything. Every conversation, every paper they present. We build an ironclad case. Then we bring in the authorities. One more thing, I said. I want to. I am prove. Speech. Want to. Face them. Clearly. Then we'll get you the best speech therapy available. You work on getting your voice back. I'll handle the legal pieces. For the next 3 weeks, I threw myself into therapy with renewed purpose. Sarah, my speech therapist, was amazed at my determination. Whatever's motivating you, Eleanor, keep it up. You've made more progress in 3 weeks than most people make in 3 months. My words were coming easier now, still slower than before, still requiring concentration, but clearer, more precise. I practiced for hours every day, reading aloud, repeating phrases, strengthening the muscles that had been weakened. Brian called occasionally, short conversations, always busy, always distant. How are you doing, Mom? Better. Much better. That's great. Listen, I've been thinking about your finances. It's getting complicated managing 2 households. Maybe we should sit down and talk about some options. Okay. When? Soon. I'll let you know. He was building up to it, setting the stage, just as Stephanie had planned. The call came on a gray November morning. Brian's voice was careful, rehearsed. Mom, Stephanie and I want to come by tomorrow. We need to discuss something important about the house and your finances. All right, great. We'll be there around 2. After I hung up, I called Jason. Tomorrow at 2. They're coming. I'll be there at 1. We'll be ready. That night, I practiced what I wanted to say. The words I'd been saving. My voice was stronger now, though still not perfect, but it would be enough. The next day, Jason arrived at 1 o'clock sharp. He'd brought another lawyer with him, a woman named Patricia Ng, who specialized in elder law. Mrs. Richardson, she said, shaking my hand firmly. Jason's told me everything. We're here to make sure your rights are protected. Thank you. Jason had set up his phone on the windowsill, angled to capture the whole room. Just in case we need it, he said quietly. At 2 o'clock, Brian and Stephanie arrived. They stopped short when they saw Jason. Jason? Brian's face went pale. What are you doing here? I came to visit my aunt. Is that a problem? No, of course not. It's just unexpected. Brian recovered quickly, his realtor training kicking in. It's good to see you, man. Stephanie's eyes were calculating, scanning the room. She spotted Patricia. And you are? Patricia Ng. I'm Mrs. Richardson's lawyer. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Her lawyer? Stephanie's smile was brittle. That's interesting. We weren't aware Eleanor had retained counsel. I retained her, I said clearly. Last week. All eyes turned to me. My voice was slower than normal, but each word was distinct, understandable. Brian blinked. Mom, you sound different. Better. I've been working hard. Speech therapy. I wanted to be clear for this conversation. That's wonderful, he said, but his enthusiasm was forced. That's really great. Please, sit down. I gestured to the chairs. You said you wanted to discuss something important. Brian and Stephanie exchanged glances. They sat. The script they'd prepared was unraveling, but they were committed now. Brian pulled out a folder. Mom, Stephanie and I have been talking. We're worried about you. Managing a big house while you're recovering is too much. The property taxes alone are $15,000 a year. Then there's maintenance, utilities, insurance. I'm aware. Right. Of course. But the thing is, you're not going back there anytime soon, maybe not ever, if we're being realistic. So we think it might be time to consider selling my house. It's not an easy decision, we know, but Mom, you could get over $1 million for that property. You could live comfortably here, or somewhere even nicer, and never worry about money again." "I see." I looked at him carefully. "And you would help with this sale?" "Of course. I'm in real estate. I'd handle everything. We could probably get $1.4 million in this market." "That's very specific," he faltered. "Well, I had it appraised, just to get an idea, for planning purposes." "When?" "A few weeks ago." "B for Thanksgiving?" His face flushed. "Around then, yes." I turned to Stephanie. "And you agree with this plan?" "Absolutely," she said smoothly. "We only want what's best for you, Eleanor. This house is just a burden now. You deserve to enjoy your retirement without that stress." "How thoughtful." Jason cleared his throat. "Brian, Stephanie, did you also want to discuss power of attorney today?" Brian's head snapped toward him. What? Power of attorney. Isn't that why you're really here? To get Eleanor to sign over legal authority?" "No, we just—" Brian stumbled over his words. "We just wanted to help. Make things easier." "By taking control of my life?" I asked quietly. "Mom, no, that's not—" "I heard you," I said. My voice was steady now. Anger made the words come easier. "Thanksgiving Day. You were in this room. You didn't know I was outside the door. But I heard everything." The color drained from Brian's face. Stephanie went very still. "You talked about my house like it was already yours. You planned to file for power of attorney B, 'cause I couldn't fight back. You called me. What was the word? Stephanie. Compliant." "Eleanor, you don't understand," Stephanie started. "I understand perfectly. My mind is fine. It always was. You just assumed that B, 'cause I couldn't speak clearly, I couldn't think clearly. You were wrong." Patricia spoke up. "For the record, Mrs. Richardson has been assessed by 3 neurologists. All have confirmed she has full cognitive capacity. Any attempt to file for power of attorney on grounds of incompetency would be fraudulent." "We weren't." Brian's voice cracked. "Mom, I wasn't trying to steal from you." "Then what were you doing?" He couldn't answer. He just sat there, his expensive suit rumpled, his hands shaking. Stephanie stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. We were trying to help. If you're going to twist our concern into something sinister, then fine. We're done here." "Sit down, Mrs. Henderson," Jason said coldly. "We're not done. I don't have to listen to this." "You do if you want to avoid criminal charges." She froze. "What?" "Elder financial abuse is a criminal offense in British Columbia. Attempting to fraudulently obtain power of attorney constitutes elder abuse. We have documentation of your plans. We have recordings of conversations. We have witness statements. You recorded us?" Brian looked sick. "The room where you discussed stealing from me? That was recorded," I confirmed. "Jason set it up before you arrived." "That's illegal. You can't use that." Patricia shook her head. "In British Columbia, one-party consent is sufficient for recording. Mrs. Richardson consented. The recording is entirely legal and admissible." Stephanie's face had gone white. "You're bluffing." Jason pulled out his phone and hit play. Their voices filled the room, crystal clear. The appraisal came back at $1.4 million. "She can barely string a sentence together, Brian. She can't fight this. By the time she's capable of fighting, it'll be done." He let it play for 30 seconds, then stopped it. The silence was deafening. "We have the full conversation," Jason said. 43 minutes of you two planning to defraud my aunt. Now, you have 2 options. Option 1, you walk away. You never contact Eleanor again. You drop any claim to her property, her finances, her life. You sign a legal document to that effect. And option 2? Stephanie's voice was barely a whisper. Option 2, we file criminal charges. We provide this evidence to the police. You're charged with attempted elder financial abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, and possibly criminal harassment. Those charges carry up to 5 years in prison in British Columbia. Brian put his head in his hands. Oh God, oh God. You have 60 seconds to decide, Patricia said, pulling out a document. This is a voluntary agreement. You sign it, you walk away, this ends here. You refuse, we call the police. They're actually on standby downstairs. "You can't be serious," Stephanie hissed. 30 seconds. I watched my son. Part of me wanted him to fight, to show some backbone, to be the person I'd raised him to be. But he just sat there, broken. "Brian," Stephanie snapped, "don't sign anything. They can't prove intent." "Can't we?" Jason queued up another recording. This one was audio only, but the voices were clear, Stephanie and Brian in a car. "Once we have the power of attorney, we sell immediately. Don't give her time to object. Move fast, get the money, and by the time anyone questions it, it'll be too late to reverse." Jason stopped the playback. "That's from yesterday. Your car, parked outside this facility. British Columbia is a one-party consent province. Eleanor was in the car. She consented to the recording. I hadn't been in the car, of course. But they didn't know that. Jason had actually obtained the recording through the facility's parking lot security camera, which had audio, perfectly legal." Stephanie's face crumpled. We were just talking." 10 seconds, Patricia said, holding out a pen. Brian reached for it with shaking hands. "I'll sign." "Brian, no!" Stephanie grabbed his arm. He shook her off. "It's over, Steph. Just stop." He signed the document, his signature barely legible. Then he looked at me. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. The business is failing, and I'm sorry. I wanted to feel something. Pity, anger, love. But I just felt empty." Stephanie grabbed the pen and scrawled her signature, her face twisted with rage. Patricia collected the document. "This agreement stipulates that you will have no contact with Mrs. Richardson unless she initiates it. You make no claim to her property or estate. You accept that you have forfeited any inheritance rights. If you violate these terms, the criminal evidence will be immediately filed with the police. Do you understand?" "Yes," Brian whispered. Stephanie just nodded, her jaw clenched. "Get out," I said quietly. They left. Brian paused at the door, looking back, but I turned away. I couldn't look at him. When they were gone, I started to shake. Jason put his arm around my shoulders. "You did it, Aunt Eleanor. It's over." "Is it?" My voice was small. "Yes. You're safe now. Your home is safe. Everything's protected." But I didn't feel protected. I felt like I'd lost my son all over again. The next week, Jason helped me arrange to go home. I was ready physically. The doctors agreed. I hired a part-time caregiver to help with meals and transportation, but I was determined to maintain my independence. The day I returned to the house on Magnolia Avenue, it was raining. Classic Victoria autumn weather. Mrs. Chen came over with a casserole. "Welcome home, Eleanor. We've missed you." I walked through each room slowly, touching familiar objects. James's reading chair, my grandmother's china, the photos on the mantelpiece. This was mine, all of it, and no one would take it from me. But the house felt different now. Smaller, somehow. Less like a home, and more like a museum of a life I'd had. I thought about Brian constantly those first few weeks. Where was he? Was he okay? Did he hate me? Did he understand why I'd done what I'd done? I didn't reach out. Neither did he. The silence was absolute. In December, Jason came for dinner. He'd been checking on me regularly, making sure I was managing okay. "How are you really doing?" he asked over tea. "I don't know," I admitted. "I saved my house. I protected myself, but I lost my son." "You didn't lose him. He lost himself." "Maybe, but he's still my child. What he tried to do was unforgivable." "Was it?" I stared into my tea. "He was desperate. Stephanie pushed him. He's weak, not evil. Weakness that leads to elder abuse is still abuse." I knew he was right, but it didn't make it hurt less. Christmas came and went. I spent it with Jason and his girlfriend. It was nice, but it wasn't family. In January, I made a decision. I called my bank and set up a trust. I worked with Patricia to draft a new will. The house would go to Jason when I died. The rest of my estate would be split between Jason and a new charity I was establishing, the Victoria Elder Protection Fund, dedicated to helping seniors fight financial abuse. Brian would inherit nothing. That was my choice. Not revenge, just reality. He'd shown me who he was. I had to believe him. But I also did something else. I wrote him a letter. Brian, I'm writing this because I want you to understand, not forgive, understand. What you tried to do was wrong, you know that. But I also know Stephanie pushed you. I know your business was failing. I know you were scared. Fear makes people do terribly things. You will not inherit my house. You will not get my money. That's done, but I want you to know that I don't hate you. I'm disappointed. I'm hurt, but you're still my son. If you ever leave Stephanie, if you ever get your life together, if you ever become the person I raised you to be, my door is open. Not for money, not for reconciliation, just for coffee, just to talk. But you have to earn that. You have to prove you've changed. Words aren't un-oh anymore. I hope someday you will. Mom, I never sent it, but I kept it in my desk drawer, just in case. Spring came to Victoria. My speech continued to improve. I joined a stroke survivors support group. I volunteered at the community center. I made new friends. Mrs. Chen introduced me to her book club. On Tuesdays, 6 of us met to discuss novels and drink too much wine. They were women my age, with their own stories of loss and survival. You're blooming, Mrs. Chen told me one evening. This is good for you. She was right. For the first time in years, maybe since James died, I felt like I had a purpose beyond just existing. In June, the Victoria Elder Protection Fund held its first fundraiser. We raised $47,000. Jason gave a speech about the importance of protecting vulnerable seniors. I sat in the audience and felt proud. Afterward, a woman approached me. She was in her 50s, well-dressed, with kind eyes. Mrs. Richardson, I wanted to thank you. My mother was almost scammed by my brother last year. Your fund helped her get legal representation. She kept her home because of you. I hugged her. We both cried. That night, alone in my house, I realized something. I'd thought this story was about revenge, about stopping the people who tried to hurt me, but it wasn't. It was about finding out I was stronger than I'd ever known. It was about discovering that losing your voice doesn't mean losing your power. It was about learning that family isn't always blood, and home isn't always the place you were born. I'd lost my son, maybe permanently. That grief would never fully go away. But I'd found myself, and that was worth something. The lessons I learned from all of this? They're simple, but they matter. First, never assume that someone who can't speak clearly can't think clearly. Disability is not incompetence. My stroke affected my mouth, not my mind. Too many people forget that distinction. Second, document everything. In situations involving potential abuse or fraud, paper trails and recordings can save your life. I wouldn't have been able to protect myself without evidence. Third, ask for help. I couldn't have fought Brian and Stephanie alone. Jason was my advocate. Patricia was my shield. Don't be too proud to admit you need support. Fourth, trust your instincts. I knew something was wrong when I heard that first conversation. I didn't dismiss it or rationalize it. I trusted my gut and acted. Fifth, set boundaries and enforce them. The agreement Brian and Stephanie signed wasn't cruel. It was necessary. Some relationships become toxic. It's okay to protect yourself, even from family. And finally, it's never too late to rebuild. I was 72 when my life fell apart. I'm 73 now, and I'm happier than I've been in years. Age doesn't define your ability to start over. I still live in the house on Magnolia Avenue. I still have bad days when my speech slurs and my left hand doesn't quite cooperate. I still miss my son, even though I know I made the right choice. But I also have book club on Tuesdays. I have dinner with Jason every week. I have the satisfaction of knowing that the fund I started has helped 17 families so far protect their elderly relatives from financial abuse. I have a life, a real life. Not the one I expected at 73, but maybe a better one. Last week, I received a letter. The return address was Vancouver, but not Brian's usual address. The handwriting was his. I haven't opened it yet. It sits on my kitchen counter, waiting. Maybe I'll open it tomorrow. Maybe next week. Maybe never. But the point is, I have the choice.